I stand here before you not merely as a wine drinker, but as a researcher. What are you experiencing? What are you noticing about the wine? What are you seeing? Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Wine and Uncorked Chronicles podcast, where we sip, we swirl, and we keep the wine conversations real. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. And that's because I recently had the opportunity to take the Unpinned Wine Course, and I wanted to share my very honest opinion. Not because I think everyone needs another online course, no. But because wine education can sometimes, feel like you're joining an exclusive club where everyone knows the secret handshake except you. And this course, it promised something different and it delivered. Wine education without pretentiousness. And today we're here to talk about what I learned, what surprised me, what actually changed the way I drink wine, and whether I think it's worth your time and your money. Sip, savor. Spoiler alert, I learned that I've been drinking wine in the wrong way for years. But let me tell you where I was before this course. Of course, I've hosted this podcast. I've interviewed people, right? And I've attended tastings with friends, with wine shops that I'm collaborating with. I've obviously read some books. I know just about enough wine terminology to survive dinner with people who obviously know way more than me. But if I'm being really honest, my wine tasting process usually looked something a little like this. Very nice. I like it. See. Now, here's the reality. I think that wine tasting is definitely a lot more than that, because that was the extent of my analysis when it came to wine. Did I enjoy it? 110%. Of course, that's a very stupid question that I just asked rhetorically. But could I explain why I enjoyed it? Not really. Not really. But this is where this wine course came in handy. And I think that's really where a lot of people are, right? This is a booming industry. It's an old industry. And what stood out immediately to me, one thing that I really appreciated about this Unpinned course is that it doesn't make you feel dumb. There wasn't this energy of, here's 700,000 French wine laws you need to memorize before you're allowed to enjoy a Chardonnay. Absolutely not. Instead, it tells you to ask yourself, what are you experiencing? What are you noticing about the wine? What are you seeing? And this is how you build confidence in your own way, on your own palette, planet. Yeah, your own planet too, because that's where wine will take you. And this shift alone was very interesting. And it came down to these things, the 6 S's. And this is a ritual I've never quite understood, as you can see. Let's talk about the thing that changed for me the most, the 6 S's, right? So when we dig into this, we're going to look at 6 S's. And I don't know how many times I'm going to say that. C, right? You swirl, you smell, you sip, you savor, most importantly, you socialize. Now, when we're saying let's see, this was a part I used to skip completely. But your eyes will tell you all the things, Is the wine vibrant? Is it dull? What does the bottle look like? What does the label look like? Does it look fresh? Right? So that's something you can easily pick up on. And most importantly, have you ever asked yourself this, You've ordered a glass of wine at the restaurant and wondered if it had been open for like a week, a month, a year. Just looking at it can give you all the clues you need, And then swirl, right? So I'm swirling dramatically because that's what you do. Can we finally admit that we've all been pretending to know why and how we do this? There is a science, though. What swirling does is that it vaporizes alcohol molecules, which, release these aroma compounds, and you're literally helping the wine to introduce itself to you. It's saying, hello, sister, you want to take a swig? What do you see when you swirl me in that cute little glass? The smell, and this is probably the most important part. And here's where probably my mind was completely blown. Your nose really does the heavy lifting here. This course reminded me that our tongues only recognize a handful of tastes, right? So it's sweet, it's sour, it's salty, it's bitter, and it's umami. And that's the handful. And because that's the only thing that your tongue can pick up on, and that's the only thing that wine people really talk about, blackberries, vanilla, pears, leather, coffee, roses, mushrooms. Where the hell did mushrooms even come from? That's not your tongue, right? If you really think about it, that's your nose. And anyway, there's a very big link between your tongue and your nose. This honestly made me feel better because suddenly wine tasting, it wasn't just about like having this magical gift and being able to pick up on all these notes and saying, it's a Sauvignon Blanc 1993 that was fermented. You don't have to smell blackcurrant from the hedge of south of France. No. Maybe it's something that you've already smelled before in your life. The smell of, I don't know, the strawberry, for example. Maybe some sweet apple pie, maybe an apple itself, maybe anything that brings you to a memory of something. That's absolutely okay. And that's where you lock in. Your lived experiences at this point really matters. And so this is what we do in this case. We have a wine over here. I know what the wine is. It's a Grauburgunder, right? So let's do it together. So I'm here with a white wine. It's a Grauburgunder from obviously this region called Germany. So first impression, I'm getting, well, no, quite honestly, the first impression of this is that it is very young. It's crisp. It's young. When I taste it, interesting. Not that I didn't taste it this whole time. It smells sweet, but the wine is dry, right? So it's definitely a dry wine, but it has quite a lot of like floral. I smell something flowery. I smell something sweet. And that's the first thing I pick up on. Then I say, right after I've sipped it, what are the first things that I really think about when I taste it? And of course, the first thing people taste is the wine, right? So, and that's the most important thing. You taste the alcohol, you taste the wine. However, you taste it again, and the smell and the taste starts to kind of just come together. And what I taste here is like an apple of sorts, but that's just me. And acidity is really the big thing for this. The biggest aha moment is the acidity levels. People, throw around words like crisp and bright, and I never really knew what that meant. And if your mouth starts watering, especially near the back of your jaw, that's acidity. I learned that from the Unpinned Wine. It's why Sauvignon Blanc tastes refreshing. It's why some wines make you immediately want another sip, just like this one. And this course even suggests trying lemon water versus sweet lemonade, right? Some lemon, different perception, and then some lemonade. And sugar is one of those things that distracts you from acidity, which is why people put a lot of sugar in lemonade. And once I understood that, I couldn't unnotice it, But I also want to come to kind of the thing I love the most about this whole course as we start to come towards the end of this segment, the socialized part. And that's the most important part about wine, because wine, it's not meant to be a solo exam. It's a social activity. Drinking wine is something you do with people. You're supposed to talk about the experience. You're supposed to laugh, enjoy it, compare notes, disagree. And guess what? People are going to taste different things from you. Nobody is right, nobody is wrong. I don't care who agrees or disagrees with you. Laugh when somebody says, I'm getting wildflowers, and somebody else says, well, it smells like Home Depot, garden center. It smells like wood, bow. nobody's wrong. That's the beauty of it. And so you might be asking the question, who is this course for? And who do I think should take this course? Well, everyone. If you're brand new to wine, do it. If you love wine but feel intimidated and think it's all a bunch of bullshit and you just enjoy the taste, definitely do it. If you've been drinking wine for a few years, you know what a good wine tastes like to you. And people tend to kind of agree with you, but maybe you have a different taste. Do it. Maybe you will learn how to pick up on different things. If you're studying for a sommelier certification, this might just be the beginning basic foundation. But this isn't trying to be some sort of sommelier course. It's trying to make wine accessible. And I think it really does succeed. And to close this segment off, here's what I really want to say. Raise your glass, because my official Wine and Uncorked Chronicles podcast review of this Unpinned Wine Course, it made me slow down. It made me trust my senses. But most importantly, it gave me practical tools instead of making me memorize facts. That's why I love it. But most importantly, I love it because it reminded me that wine is supposed to be enjoyed. It's supposed to be savored. It's not supposed to be performed. It doesn't need to be performed. Wine is non-pretentious. So just take a sip, enjoy it. Thank you for tuning in to this particular segment. I hope you enjoyed it. Go ahead and take the course. And for all of you that really are watching, I'd love to know, what's the one thing that you've learned about wine that completely changed the way you drink it? Leave it in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you in the next segment. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I can't believe I'm giving a TED Talk for the first time. So I guess let's get into it. Good evening. So I stand here before you not merely as a wine drinker, but as a researcher, a seeker of truth, a woman who has spent 45 minutes pretending to understand the phrases whetstone minerality, because everyone else at the tasting nodded and I panicked. And tonight, I present the findings of a groundbreaking study. The subject, right here. Fritz Keller, Weißer Burgunder, Trocken, 2025. Now, before beginning, I'd like to acknowledge the support of our sponsors. Of course, the Wine and Uncorked Chronicles podcast, me, of course, and one increasingly expensive local wine shop. This wine sponsor decided to remit its name. The hypothesis, however, behind this investigation was simple. Surely a wine with as much confidence as this in its own name must be extraordinary. I mean, look at the graph. Listen to it. Fritz Keller, Weißer Burgunder, Trocken, 2025. It's not a wine. It's either a celebrated vintner or the head European intelligence. You don't hear that name and think, oh, I'll be patient with fish. No, 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 no. You hear it and think, of course, this man has opinions about the Eurozone. You hear it and you think expectations naturally were very, very, very high. So we designed our experiment, as you can see, observations, theory, years of knowledge, analysis, repeated sampling. In one evening, peer reviews, and, of course, tastings. By which I mean I drank it with increasingly opinionated friends, and immediately we encountered our first scientific challenge, ladies and gentlemen, and wine people. Because the wine people never simply like something. Nobody ever says, I enjoy this. No. And this became part of the reason why we decided to look at this. Wine people pick up their glasses, they inhale dramatically and declare, I'm getting notes of quince, fresh linen, and the grief of a second son. How? How are you getting grief? I barely got a pear. Explain this to me. Someone once told me that wine had excellent tension. And I wondered, tension? What could tension mean on this graph? It's Chardonnay, Susan, not an episode of Succession. And of course, science always begs for theory to test the hypothesis, but determined to maintain academic rigor, I approached the Fritz Keller with an open mind. First, the virtual analysis. Pale straw in color. Elegant, but restrained. The visual equivalent of somebody who says, I don't need much makeup, which I don't. While naturally resembling a Scandinavian supermodel, or should I say, Nubian queen, promising. Then came the aroma, naturally, of course. Pear, we started there, so let's start with pear. Apple, of course, grapes. Touch of citrus. Maybe even some mushrooms. Freshness, crisp. Rosé all day, baby. Lovely. Textbook. Precision. Now, as I have come to study and what these results have come to show me, it's like meeting somebody whose answer to tell me about yourself is, I am hardworking, organized, and a perfectionist. No one is buying it. Absolutely no one is buying it. But here's the thing, I thought, we evaluated all the resources here, the X chromosome and the Y chromosome, perhaps the drama lies in the palate, perhaps the slow burn, perhaps the first sip opens a portal to another dimension. And that was what I realized, ladies and gentlemen, was missing. So I picked it up and I decided to be the taste dummy. Scientifically speaking, of course, nothing happened immediately. No fireworks, no real sensation, no revelation, no elimination for the nation. I didn't suddenly understand cryptocurrency. I didn't forgive that person. I didn't think. This changes everything. This changed absolutely everything about the Y and the X chromosome. I simply thought, oh, that is nice. And that's what the conclusion that it brought me to. And this is what you see today. Now, in scientific circles, as we have seen, that's nice is absolutely devastating. Nobody wins a Nobel Peace Prize because something was nice. We all know that. Here, as intellectuals sitting in this great hall, Marie Curie didn't discover radioactivity and say, quite pleasant, actually. Darwin didn't spend years aboard the Beagle just to conclude the finches were fine. Oh no. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at the revelation of a lifetime. Yet there was, holding a perfectly respectable German wine, unable to fault it. Ladies and gentlemen of this fantastic TED Talk of revelations, unable to adore this, trapped in emotional purgatory, I stumble, of moderate approval. Now, at this point in our research, the team had identified what we have termed the beige cardigan effect or the silk scarf effect, which is why I decided to wear this phenomenon on my neck. It occurs when repeated exposure increases affection while simultaneously decreasing excitement. You know the type: dependable, kind, always arrives on time, brings Tupperware, brings Tupperware. Back cleaned. No one writes sonnets about them, but everyone secretly wants them. Organizing the group holiday. German. Fritz Keller is not the tattooed poet who ruins your life. Of course not. Fritz Keller is the attractive accountant who reminds you your passport expires in 6 months, and somehow that's hotter at 38 than it was at 23. I'm telling you that. Now, as we have already spoken about the X chromosome and the Y chromosome, I love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We then moved on to phase two, the talking discrepancy. Because when you hear the word trocken, dry is what it means in Deutsch. German for dry. Uh, for those of you who are well versed in Deutsch, you expect danger. You expect edge. You expect a wine that says, you won't understand me. It's very hard to understand me. Instead, this incredible Fritz Keller says, I already made the dinner reservation. It thinks ahead. The wine has a pension. It owns practical footwear, Adidas. It knows exactly where warranty documents are. It knows where your passport is. It has never once texted you, you up? No. It has said, good morning. Shall we go on a hike? But here's the truly astonishing thing. The bottle kept emptying. And this is what was astonishing. Nobody complained. Nobody looked offended at all. And this kind of disagreed with the initial graph climb of the research. Nobody dramatically pushed it away. There was no ecstatic declaration. No one shouted. Nobody, absolutely nobody shouted, this is the greatest wine I've ever tasted. No, 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 no. But equally, and this is the part that really was for the scientists amongst many of us from the Max Planck Institution of Plasma Physics, nobody stopped drinking it. And that's when I realized I'd stumbled upon something profound. Because perhaps our entire culture has become addicted to extremes. Everything must be life-changing, the best, the worst, the ultimate. We don't go on holidays anymore. No, we work tirelessly. We create transformative journeys when we do go on holiday. We don't have dinner. We eat experiences. We curate experiences. That is what we do these days. Even yoga classes promises breakthroughs. Pilates classes with strings going everywhere in the name of getting stronger. I once attended a spin class described as a spiritual awakening. It was a bicycle, ladies and gentlemen. It was a bicycle. Now, maybe we brought that same impossible expectation to wine. Perhaps even the bottle has something to teach us. Perhaps this mere, simple, just fine wine, every glass must reveal hidden truths. Every sip should justify the Instagram caption. But what if, for just 1 second, and I realize that maybe perhaps this is controversial, what if some wines are simply good, not transcendent, not catastrophic, just good, just competent, simply well made, just enough, delicious? What if this is a pleasant accompaniment to that roast chicken? Here's what I want to say. I know, I understand. I stand here today with all this research, knowing that this is difficult to hear, but secretly, I wanted catastrophe. I wanted to stand here and say today, this wine has changed my life. Or perhaps I may have uttered, this wine destroyed my evening. But on the contrary, instead, I have data suggesting that the Fritz Keller Weiss Burgunder Trocken 2025 achieved something much rarer: universal moderate approval. The Switzerland of wines. No enemies, no fanatics. Just broad based coalition support. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Be open to taking questions later. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, good people, thank you so much for tuning in to today's wacky world of the Wine and Encore Chronicles podcast. I had such a great time recording that today. If you like the format of today's video, please leave a comment down below. If you have any feedback, give me some feedback. I don't care. I can take it. But I had a great time. Thank you so much for tuning in and looking forward to seeing you next week. Love, love, love. All right, guys, ladies, out.
Well, I ain't sure,
She's
but I
out.
think this girl is dangerous.